Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Osseo gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Osseo's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Osseo. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Mobile hunters, our buddies over at Tethered are always innovating to keep us more mobile and in the game when it counts. From the Tethered One Sticks, the Fast Pack, to the Ultra Lock saddle, Tethered is always designing to increase comfort and utility while reducing bulk, weight, and fiddle factor of mobile hunting gear. And now, they've outdone themselves yet again by creating the carbon fiber forged Predator CFX platform, the latest fully featured mobile saddle platform that raises the bar for what's possible in mobile hunting gear. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old tree climbing veteran, go to tetherednation.com for all your saddle hunting gear. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, that dashing fella that I have on the other side of the camera here with me is my good buddy, Mr. Wilson, by God, McSwain. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, nothing. It's almost 100 degrees in Idaho, so.
You got a long sleeve shirt on, too. I was actually thinking that it was, like, cool outside because I was watching, who was it? Dan Johnson. I was watching, like, he had posted a story. I think he was at like his kid's ball game or something like that, and he was wearing a sweatshirt in Iowa. And I was like, dang, because here in PA, it's like 96 today. And I'm like, where's he at? Like, is it that much cooler in Iowa? And like legit, it was in the morning. So like, nice, cool morning temps. I think his high like that yesterday or something like that was like 82 or 80 or something like that. So it was like 70 or 69, like where he was at, or at that time or whatever. I'm like, man, I would love to get a little of that. I don't know if I need it this early though, because if I get it now, man, I'm gonna start like jonesing for hunting season, because that's like when you start to get that little temp change, dude. It's go time.
Yeah, well, we have 50-degree temp swings right now, so it's like 100 and then mid 50s in the evening. So like you can have a bonfire at night and wear a sweatshirt, and it was 100 degrees in the afternoon.
Right.
So,
I'm hoping,
but it's air conditioning. That's why I got a long sleeve shirt.
Okay, there you go. I'm hoping that you use up all those 100-degree temps now before I get out to Idaho, because dude, last time I was out, that was a scorcher.
Brutal. Yeah, last year was similar too, but not as hot as. But you were there the first week.
Yeah.
So it was still. I mean, there was people fighting forest fires like 200 yards from us when we were there.
Hey, what's that smoke over there?
Yeah. Is that on fire?
We're driving up the mountain. I'm like, hey, I smell smoke. You're like,
someone's barbecuing, man. I was like, oh crap, there's a fire.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I mean, we got lucky. It stayed away from us for the most part, but there was a moment where we were thinking like, should we get off the mountain maybe? Like, is that maybe what we should do? And we were like, we'll wait till tomorrow and see what it looks like. And we were safe.
I got I'm picking up a motorcycle tomorrow. I'm getting in the Harley game.
Ooh.
And my wife was like, they're just dangerous. I was like, out of all the dangerous things I've done and stupid things I've done, you don't even ask me about it.
Right.
Like forest fires, like backpacking into a forest fire or camping in grizzly country by yourself or whatever. She's just like, text me when you're on your way home. But I'm like, hey, I'm going to get a motorcycle. She's like, that's dangerous.
Motorcycle's where I draw the line.
It's where you draw the line. I'm going to ride it like once a month, maybe. If that, I don't know. I'll probably just sell it. I have no idea. But
right. That's pretty sweet. I've wanted a Harley for the longest time. So the story goes, we were living in Florida, which is like the perfect time to have a bike because, you can ride it pretty much all year round.
All year. Yeah.
Yeah. And a bunch of my buddies, like, the bar that I worked at, and when I was in the rock band, my buddy's bar, it's like, it was a rock and roll bar and punk rock bar and stuff like that. And there was just a lot of bikers that hung out there. Like a bunch of my buddies, there was I forget what the school was called, but there was a big motorcycle school like in Orlando. And so like I had buddies that went to school there and they were working at Harley or they were working at like a custom chopper shop. Cause this was also during the era of like that custom, like everyone had a custom chopper TV show.
Yeah.
At that time. Right. which unfortunately really was the undoing of like the custom like bike like business, if you will, because like it just got super saturated and people were building junk bikes and stuff like that. But I had a bunch of buddies who were into like custom choppers, and they would build custom choppers and stuff like that. And they were all, they would come into the bar after work or whatever, or on weekends to see bands and stuff. And so I was like, I wanted to get a bike, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get a bike because I grew up riding dirt bikes and motocross bikes and
Yeah,
riding motorcycles on the street before I,
should have been.
before I should have been. Yeah, exactly. Because I lived in the middle of nowhere. I lived in the country, so it
Yeah,
was like I had a better chance of like seeing a pig than I did like a cop, like where I lived. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so that was just like the reality of it. Bad choice of like, I'm realizing now it was like
Not
maybe
the
a
best
cow,
comparison words.
like a cow versus a horse or a chicken or whatever versus, a police officer.
Yeah,
Um, and, uh, and so I finally was like, cool. I was like, I'm going to get a bike, and so, cause I'd left the band at that point, I was like, I'm done with music, whatever. I was like, I've always wanted a bike, I was like, I'm going to get a Harley. And so I went and actually, got my motorcycle license. I was like, that was what I wanted to do for my birthday. I was like, I just want to go get my motorcycle license. So I did that. And then I started looking at bikes, and started kind of shopping around and having some buddies kind of help me out, trying to figure out what I wanted to get and stuff like that. And like, I had it narrowed down to just like, I forget what it was. It was a couple of them. And I'd waited a while because I got my license in April, and it was like winter, like the following winter, right? So like the following
yeah,
December. And I was like, all right, I was like, for Christmas, I'm going to get myself a bike like right after Christmas.
yeah.
And I think it was right around Christmas. And Megan, yeah, I think it was right around Christmas. And Megan tells me that we're pregnant and we're going to have Anna. And
Ah,
that basically ixnayed the old Ike Bay on that one, Yeah. And so I was like, all right, cool, we'll have the baby. And then, we knew we were going to move to PA. I was like, I'll get a bike then. And she was basically like, yeah, you're not getting a bike until she's like, doesn't need a dad anymore. So, and I was like, all right.
valid.
Yeah. So I was like, that's how that went. So she was like, once Anna's like old enough to like, self-sustain and whatever, she doesn't need you around anymore, then you can get a bike if you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's basically there now.
She's almost there now. Yeah. It's like, and I keep looking and I look all the time and I'm like, what am I going to do? Just drive it back and forth. I don't go anywhere, dude. I work from
I
home.
know.
Like, like I would literally ride it back and forth to the jujitsu gym, which is like 2 miles away. Like, what I mean?
Hey,
That's all I'm going
you
to
could
do.
drive to the gym for a month on one tank of gas. You're good to go.
Dude, I probably wouldn't have to fill it ever. You know what I mean? It's like, I could probably just like rap and like coast the rest of the way.
Coast down the hill.
Yeah, exactly. Cause it ain't that far. What are you looking at though? What kind of bike you want to get? Or what kind of bike you pick it up?
It's a Harley. It's a 2007 Harley Sportster HD. So it's
Okay.
like got a bigger tank and then
Hmm.
1200. So I mean, it's bigger motor for a Sportster, I guess.
Hmm.
But my wife's car blew a transmission. So we've had it for like 11 years. That black
Right.
Jeep I was driving
Yeah,
around
yeah.
for a while. And so we got her another car, and this car's just sitting there unusable. So I put it on Facebook for trade, and this guy is like, I can't ride motorcycles, and I'm a mechanic, so I'm literally just trading him
Oh, nice.
for a running motorcycle. So Lauren
Nice.
doesn't have a choice. I'm getting it, whether she wants me to get it or not.
All right, we'll see if it's still there when I get out there in September.
Oh yeah, I'll probably have traded it for I don't know, Segway or something. I don't know,
Right, you'll have like a
something
new
safer.
you'll have a new motor on your boat is what you'll have.
Oh yeah, I don't. Maybe we'll try.
Maybe you're like, oh well, that's not a bad idea.
Now we're talking. Now you
Nice,
got me
man.
thinking.
Nice. So what else is going on,
Uh,
man? You've been busy. The family's good.
yeah, we're in a good time. It's like kids are older now, so like Brett, my son is liking fishing a lot, so it's getting up early and going fishing, and we're camping.
I see you like you're camping like all the
Dude,
time, dude.
because Lauren, it's her first summer because she's a librarian at the school, so she has summer off, which you know what that's like
Yeah.
for the most part, right? Like
Hmm.
your wife gets to be home in the summer, so if I'm not working, we're going camping or we're going swimming or we're going boating. So I get home and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? That's fun, because that
Dragging
is the
dad
one.
along.
It's a big difference. Like Pennsylvania has a lot of cool outdoor opportunities, but they're not as accessible as they are in Idaho,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it
Where,
makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do around here outdoors, but it's like I feel like you're right, where it's like got to kind of travel a little bit to it, where it feels
yeah,
like, especially where you live in Idaho, it's like it's literally out your back door for the most part.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, like three lakes and a river all within 15 minutes. So it's like nothing's a big ordeal. Like you can just throw your swimsuit on and go be at the lake and swim or go hike or whatever it may be. Um, so there's always something. Like last night, we took our Blackstone to the river and swam in a sandbar and cooked dinner on the Blackstone on the river.
Yeah, that's
Just like,
terrible.
yeah, we're like cleaning the house, and I was like, "You guys want to go to the river and make dinner?"
And you're out. Yeah, it's
So
not
yeah,
like you got to pack up a bunch of stuff to do because it's just down the road.
yeah, it's not a big outing. It's just like we're just gonna go do it. Um,
Right.
if you know where it's at, because there's like it's pretty common to do that here. So you get to a spot and there's like, oh, there's people everywhere.
Right.
Um,
That's the
so
downside of it.
yeah, because it's normal, everyone does it. Where Pennsylvania is a little different. Like you could find a cool spot and you're like, no one comes here. Like no one
Mhm.
because it's too humid to go outside.
Dude, you ain't kidding, man, because we just got back from vacation. We were in
It-
Aruba, and this is, obviously summer there as well, and hot, and humid. But there's like, it's an island,
yeah,
and so you have like an awesome breeze like constantly, no matter
yeah,
where you're at, to where it's like even when it's hot, like it doesn't feel hot, And I come back to PA and it's like 96 degrees, humid, and like not a stitch of wind. And
yeah.
I'm like, I don't even want to be outside. This is awful. Like,
I was FaceTiming my in-laws and they're like, "How's it going?" And they're just like sweating. I'm like, "Oh, you guys just work out?" And they're like, "No, we just went outside." I was
we got
like,
the mail.
"Dude, it looked like they were in the rainforest or something."
Yeah, yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
pretty
it's just a
brutal.
fun time of life right now where we're just
Kids are
like,
great age too, man. Where it's like
yeah,
they're just like, yeah, let's do whatever, man.
yeah. Like we're going to Wyoming next weekend.
Sweet.
And so we're just gonna bomb down to Wyoming, see my buddy Joe, see Kobe,
Mhm.
get a tour of the Weatherby factory, hopefully. But yeah, it's just like they're flexible. So you want to go on a road trip, boom, they jump in. And our kids are very non-technology kids so far, so like they're not gonna be jonesing for an iPad or something on the road trip. Like they're still content with like I Spy, you know.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great age.
So it's like really fun where I can be like, "Hey kids, fart," and then it's funny for like an hour, and it
Right.
just
Yeah.
killed an hour of the road trip.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Not so much for me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different, man. But
Um,
transitioning here, hard transition.
yeah.
We,
Skirt.
sure. Um, you just got some. So we were talking before we started recording, just kind of catching up a
Yeah.
little bit, and we were both kind of lamenting like we've been really busy this summer. You know, every now and then I'll shoot you a text, and we'll get to like our plans like for the fall and stuff like that a little bit
Yeah.
in a little bit. But when I get a moment and I'm like not thinking of work or podcast or the other 100 things I have to do, I'll think
Yeah.
of getting ready for, to come out to see you in September, and I'll just text you one word. I'll just be elk,
Elk.
and that's like, and I know we're both busy. That's about all the time we have like to think about it, at the moment. But, as I got back from vacation, I was saying, that July 4th time period is like whenever I really start to think about hunting season. Cause like, you have some final prep things you have to kind of do to get ready to go
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just close enough to where you can start anticipating it a little bit without driving yourself completely crazy.
Yeah.
And then you said you just got like a bunch of tags for this year
Yeah.
that just came through, and it was like, you hadn't had a whole lot of time to think about it either. And then those tags came through and you were like, woo,
Oh yeah.
And so how pumped are you, and what tags did you get?
Dude, super pumped. As we've talked about before, when I moved here, whitetail stuff was just like, I was like, I
Mhm.
got to focus on figuring this elk thing out. Um, because whitetail, we get one tag here and it's like, I'm just going to shoot a deer and focus on elk. Um, well, I don't by any means have elk figured out, but this year I put in for an extra deer tag, and I put my wife in for an extra deer tag, and we both drew them,
Hmm.
which is awesome. It's phenomenal. So we both, between me and my wife, we can shoot 4 whitetails,
Wow, nice.
which is like coming from Pennsylvania where you have that option for unlimited doe tags and where we would fill our freezer with a year's worth of meat just off of whitetails. Moving here and you're like one tag doesn't get you very far.
Yeah.
And so really that, and our kids like eating venison, not just liking, they prefer venison. We prefer it. And just with meat culture these days, we prefer wild
Hmm.
game. And so I say like the politics of the meat world, meat
Hmm.
culture, like just the prices and what goes into it. But so now we have 4 whitetail tags, which means we can shoot. I can shoot a doe, my wife can shoot a doe, she can shoot another doe, and then I can have a whitetail tag that I'd focus on actually hunting a whitetail, a mature buck.
Right.
When before I just didn't care. I was like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to shoot the most giant doe I can find just on the afternoon. And that's how all my whitetail hunts have been here. It's like, go out, shoot a doe, come back. Last year I used my whitetail tag for a mule deer, so I shot a mule deer in the Frank Church.
Hmm.
Which was epic.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
I don't think we haven't talked on the podcast since then, have we?
no, that was life changing. Like,
Yeah, dude. Let's
dude,
talk about that, man, because that was like
yeah,
I was stoked for you, and I've tried to describe it to a couple different people. Um, I forget who it was I was talking to. It was actually recently. I was talking to somebody, and I'd mentioned you, and because I said I was going elk hunting, and they said where we were talking about hunting, and I mentioned elk hunting, and I was coming out to see you, and I was like, oh yeah, so my buddy lives out in Idaho, um, and I was mentioning like I was like he hunts this really remote area. He did a mule deer hunt there this year. And I wish I could remember who it was, and I had mentioned it, and every time I kind of mention it, I think back to it in like the pictures that you sent me, and
dude,
just like how, I mean, I wasn't even there and it looked dope. It's like
yeah,
it's just in the pictures. It's like
yeah,
I romanticize about it, and I wasn't even there. So
yeah,
for people that don't know what it is, like the Frank Church, like just kind of explain what it is and like what the hunt's like there and stuff like that.
yeah. It's a one of the last true wilderness areas. Um, it's one
In
of
the
the
lower
largest,
48, right?
yeah, last true wilderness areas in the lower 48, where it's difficult to access, difficult to scout. There is a couple ways you can get in via vehicle, but you can't get in very far. And it's rugged. So a lot of people will either float, they will raft through sections of it, or horseback in a certain, distance. But you got to really like horses to
Mm.
horseback in to where there's good hunting. But it's strict. Like you can't bring motorized vehicles or motorized equipment into most of it. Rules are different. Like for predator hunting, like you can't use a light at night, and there's like a lot. It's a very strict because they want to preserve the wildness of it. And so, you talk to people about it, and it's a pretty hush hush thing because the people who do it have spent a lot of time figuring it out, and then the people who want to do it, they can't really get a lot of information about it. There's some videos on YouTube and stuff about it, but I understand why, because I went in there and I was like, this place is so beautiful and so immaculate. Like, I don't want to tell anyone about it. Like, you don't want to ruin it.
Right.
And
I mean,
granted, like we,
it's a hard tag to get too. Like, I mean,
yes, yeah,
I would, as a non-resident, very little chance I'd probably ever get that tag.
no, and that's why, like, you got to put in for it because if you ever get it, man, it'll be epic. Um, but I've always been an archery hunter, and so my buddy was turning 30, and he's like, "Hey, I want to go hunt the Frank Church. I've done it before. My dad does it every year. Let's go in there."
And
I
this
was
is
like,
Clancy, yeah, right?
"Clancy, yeah,
Everybody, or
yep,
Chansey, as I like to call
yeah,
him.
Chauncey,"
Oh, Chauncey. That one's for
and
you, Clancy. I know what your name is.
yeah, um, he was like, "Let's do this." So I'm like, "Great, I'm here for it." Uh, and his dad kind of goes in and has a base camp, and then kind of day hunts out of there. And he was like, I want to go in and do like a backpack in there because it's pretty, I mean, it's rugged, it's brutal. Everything is steep. Like we flew in and I was like, man, we should hunt just out of camp, like day hunt, because it's so. Uh, you sure about this?
Right. Well,
And
because when you told me it was steep, like I was in my mind thinking, I was like, oh yeah, it'll be steep, like it'll be rugged, you know. And I was thinking like where we hunted elk, because that's steep, you know,
oh yeah, yeah, that's
just in general,
also
right?
very steep. Yeah,
But when you sent me the pictures of it afterwards, I was like, oh, dude, like where we hunted in Idaho, in northern Idaho, doesn't like it's not even
compare.
comparable. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not even
I
close.
mean, we
It
were
almost
like
looks like. Go ahead.
no, we're like 1,000 feet below where people sheep hunt.
Yeah, and like what it reminded me of, not necessarily like the landscape of it, but just like the steepness of it, is like when you see, you know, pictures or video of like special forces in like Afghanistan or something.
Afghanistan. Yeah,
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw it, like just literally how steep, how sheer everything is there. I was like, dude, it looks like he's in the like Pakistan, Afghanistan, like somewhere, just based on like the steepness, the amount of vert
yeah,
that you have to deal with. You took your picture sitting, and it was like, I mean, you're almost like standing up while you were
oh
sitting.
yeah,
Like you know, it was like that steep.
yeah. We you spend so much time in your class, and you're like, watching deer or whatever, and you come out, you're like, oh, this is so nice, and then you come out of your class, you're like, oh my gosh, it's nasty, because you
Right.
just forget you get in this world, you're watching deer or whatever. But I've never hunted mule deer before, and so, and I've never been on a big rifle hunt, and so mule deer rifle. I've done a lot of backcountry stuff, so the backcountry part was not new to me. I love that adventure side of hunting. But yeah, mule deer are sweet. Just watching them, it's a migration corridor, and so they're migrating into the wintering area and they're rutting at the same time. So every day, you could be watching new deer every day. And so you are in a certain area and you're watching a drainage, you go to bed. Well, that buck you saw the day before, he's either like gone or he's on a doe, or there's a different buck that moved in and pushed him out because they're migrating out of the mountains. And so the anticipation waking up every day, coming from a whitetail guy who's like, I'm looking for this one deer that I've known for 5 or 6 years, and I have cameras, I have pictures of him, I know where he lives, all this stuff. To like, I get to just shoot something that is exciting to me because I don't know what's coming. Was like, dude, I could hardly sleep. It's 5 degrees and you're freezing, and you're like, I can't wait to wake up to see a deer. And Clancy shot a really nice 4x4 on our second night there. So like we stayed at the base camp, woke up in the morning, hiked up to our first spike camp, and that evening he shot a nice deer. He shot a mule deer before, and he was like, "Hey, I just want to shoot a nice 4x4. If I see one, I'm gonna whack it." He shot it. It was awesome. We'd been glassing like 1,000 yards away or 700 yards away at these deer all night, and then he's like, "Right here," and we'd look to our right, and like 150 yards, this deer just comes over a saddle and stands there, just all majestic, like, "Hey, you should shoot me." And he's like, "I'm shooting him." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I get my camera up, I film it or whatever. And so then now I got like 5 days to hunt and just go and find a deer that gets me pumped. And I'll tell you, that was super hard because in the back of my head, I'm like, I got to shoot a monster. It's my first mule deer. I want to post like this epic grip and grin, like I think we talked about this on the phone. This like,
You and I did, yeah.
it was, I went through like this identity crisis where I was like, I got to shoot. I've just been so saturated in the hunting industry. I'm like, I got to shoot a giant mule deer, and it had nothing to do with what my buddy Clancy shot. Like, it wasn't like I got to shoot something bigger than him. It was all about me. And, I watched the one morning, everyone was like tired. They're like, hey, we're going to sleep in a little bit. They'd already all shot their buck. So I'm like, hey, well, I'm getting up early. And this super nice, 3x4 comes walking underneath this bluff that look, I could have shot him with a bow. And I was like, dude, just a nice mule deer, wide and tall. And I watched him go by, and I was like, yeah, he's not big enough. And then they met up with me. They hiked in, and I was like, yeah. So now he's like 1,000 yards away. We put the spotting scope on him, and he was like, my buddy's dad was like, why didn't you not shoot him? I was like, I don't know. I couldn't. Inside, I knew I was like prideful, and I was like, I want to shoot a big deer. But he was a big deer. And the mountain beat me up. We put a lot of miles on, and I was super, just like physically and emotionally exhausted. And second to last, so I had like a day and a half to hunt after this full day. And my buddy's dad, Clancy's dad, and Clancy and I went out. He's like, let's just try this ridge over here and see if anything excites you. You know, now it's becoming a joke. And this buck comes over the ridge, literally just this little 2x2. Like, I mean, he's this tall, little tiny eye guards, comes over the ridge, chasing a doe all rutted up. And inside, like, so I was like, I got to shoot that deer. Like, it was so majestic, him coming over the ridge. And I'd had a rough season, which we can talk about later. So my confidence level was 0.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped at 325, and I was like, guys, I'm shooting him. And they were like, what? And just, dude, I plugged him 325 yards with a rifle, which was sweet. And he just turned around, and they're like, shoot him again. So shot him again. Actually, no, I didn't turn around. He just kind of ran along the hillside. And I shot him twice in the heart at 325 yards, and he stood there. So my confidence already super low, and I'm like, I can't kill an animal. And I'm freaking out. Clancy's looking. He's like, dude, he's dead, dude. Relax. And I'm like, he's standing there. And I look back up, and he goes, are you sure? And he's just tumbling down the hillside. And literally, it was just like a flood of emotion. I bawled my eyes out, not because like, it's just a release of emotion. I was just like, it wasn't because I was sad, or it wasn't because I was like overjoyed, but it was just like, I just went out, had an epic experience, harvested a deer, and had a great time with buddies.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know, for me, like, whenever, like, you told me this story, we talked about it on the phone at one point. And like, to me, it's like that release of emotion was like you learned a little bit about yourself that day. Like, or during that season, you could even say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I think, I was super pumped for you, because you did have a tough season, but just because that's an epic trip, man, to have, like, to pull a deer out of a place like that. Just when you sent me the pictures and stuff like that, I mean, there's nothing cooler than doing something like that. But it's the like the revelation that you have about what hunting means to you, and how much fun it is, and that the end result really doesn't matter. And when you start to kind of hunt that way, it just brings all the joy back into it. You know what I mean? Because you and I are similar in the way that, we get like a goal in our mind of like something that we want to do. Right. And when we do, we kind of start going after it real hard, and we kind of get the blinders on a little bit. And, if you're not careful, it starts to almost feel like a job. I don't want to, it's not 100% like a job, but like you start to be so fixated on the thing you're trying to achieve, and then you start not appreciating like the small little things that you're getting to experience along the way, that, and I try to remind myself of this even when, even when I was on vacation, like, just as an example, right? It's like, thinking about like whether it was work or whatever, and I'm standing on this beach looking over the ocean, and the water's all blue and turquoise and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, just like listen to the sounds, watch the bird fly by, like watch the people on the jet ski, like just soak it all in, man, be present. Right.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, whenever you kind of told me the story at first, I was like, it was that like stark reminder of not being present,
Mm-hmm.
and I've known you for a while, man. It's like you pride yourself on being in the moment, like being there for like the experience, being there for your people, and things like that. And the thing is, like, when you realize in hunting that you're not being present in those moments that like you should be enthralled in, right? Like, at least for me anyway, whenever I realize that, I also then like almost immediately realize that like I'm also not present for like the other parts of my life that are really, really important for me to be present for. Right. So like
100%.
time with my family and stuff like that. Right. And so it's really one of those things where it's like, this was just kind of like the symptom, if you will. Right. But the result is that I'm doing this in other places that I'm just not as aware that I'm doing it. And this is the thing that made me aware. You know what I mean? So,
and you've known me for a while.
Good while.
And And you know, like I'll be the last one to care like what size of deer anybody shoots. Like you know
Mhm.
that, and what
Yep.
size of deer I shoot. You know, like I've shot small, small bucks because I'm like they get me pumped up.
Hmm.
And like if you went to Kansas and shot a 90-inch whitetail and sent me it, I would genuinely be pumped for you.
Yep.
And it was just this like realization that I deep down I was feeling away and not being present, and I just felt like a dirtbag. So I was like, man,
Hmm.
I I take it for granted how much of the outdoors I get to experience. You know, just with like living where I live and the opportunities I've had, and my wife who literally never says no. You know, I
Hmm.
could walk out there right now and be like, "Hey, Clint said I got to go to Kansas with him," and she'd be like, "You're gonna have so much fun." Like she just, Lauren,
Exactly. She would
like,
totally say it that way too.
yeah, yeah,
You're
like,
gonna have you have a great time.
yeah,
Let me pack something for you and Clint to
yes,
eat. That's
yes.
exactly what she would do.
And like I'd be like, hey, so apparently I have to quit my job and be a moose guide in Alaska for 3 years. So just hug the kids for me. And she'd be like, okay, I will. Where do I send your mail? You know, like it's just
Yeah.
Lauren is just outside this world, and I don't take advantage of it for sure. But I think I take it for granted where I'm like, oh, I'm out here in this thing, and I'm like, I've already experienced it, like. But I went on a bear hunt. A buddy from Pennsylvania came out. He's like, hey, I'm gonna hunt bear in Montana. So I went to Lauren. I was like, hey, I'm going bear hunting in grizzly country with my buddy Scott. She's like, okay. Do you need me to do any laundry? or and
Right.
uh, dude, it was epic because we're sitting up there. It was a brutal hike in, way farther than we thought we were gonna go, and should have gone. And it just starts dumping snow, and I'm overlooking this giant basin, and there's deer here, moose here, whatever. And I'm just like, this is sick. Like it's just like I made a cup of coffee. I'm soaking wet. My buddy's like, I think it's supposed to get to like 28 degrees tonight. I'm like, oh, let's go set up our tent and my sleeping bag. Well, I didn't realize my knife had opened in my pack and punctured one of my Nalgene's that was at the
Mhm.
top of my pack. Soaked my sleeping bag, my coat, everything. Literally everything I brought was soaked. And that night is supposed to get to 28 degrees. And I was just like, I'm here for it. We're in the
Yeah.
moment. Like, he's like, but we're gonna die. I'm like, we're not gonna die. Um,
But we're gonna
because
die.
yeah, but we can make a fire. We can dry our stuff. So thankfully, we got stuff dried up, and but it was just like I realized on that trip, I was like, man, this is epic because I like bear hunting. Bear hunting's cool, but I like bear hunting because of the places you get to see. And man, that whole trip, I was just like, dude, this is sick. Did you see that eagle?
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, look at that chipmunk. I spent like an hour looking at a chipmunk when I should have been looking at bears. And so,
Right.
it was just, yeah, it was sweet.
Nice.
And that's what gets me even more pumped for this. Well, I've seen it affect my family life where, we all work a lot, and we come home, but like being present with my family and shutting my phone off. And like if my kids are like, can we do this? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Instead of like,
Hmm.
I'm tired or like, I don't, because we only have so much time, right? So
Hmm.
um, I've seen this season of my life where I talk to other guys who are like, oh, I really want to do this. I want to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but what about what you're doing right now?
Hmm.
And we see it in the hunting industry where as soon as summer hits, what do people start doing? They start posting pictures of fall in leaf foliage, deer in the leaves and stuff. And they're like, can't wait for fall. And hunters, we just like keep skipping over the season we're in because we always want the
Dude,
next thing.
it's funny you say
And
this because I have
instead of
a,
just be like, go fishing and be excited to be on the water, or like go camping, because the fall is always going to come, unless God shuts the world down or whatever. Like
right,
the
or you
fall's going to
die,
come.
which is
Yeah. Or you
possible,
die.
but then you don't know what you're missing anyway. So like whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny you say that because I was talking with a buddy of mine. We were just texting back and forth something. He's been on the show before. Love the dude's super good dude. If he's listening to this, he'll probably know that I'm talking about him. Not talking smack, dude. Just
Yes.
it's a reference point because we were texting about something, and I forget what it was, but he sent me something like along the lines of thinking of big big bucks or something like that. Cause I was on vacation in Aruba doing like, this is what I'm doing now. And it was like the picture of like where I was at or whatever. And, sitting on the beach, enjoying myself. And he's like, this is where I'm at, something, big bucks or whatever.
Oh
And I
yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah.
and I just said, I was like, in due time, in due time.
Yeah, in due
You know what
time.
I mean? I was like, and it's
Yeah.
really weird because I've made this shift, probably 2 years ago now, and it's been like one of the healthiest things for me, and like it's been the best thing for me for hunting too. Where you know, I try not to go. It's sometimes hard whenever you're in a rut doing something or whatever. You're like, oh man, I just want to get through like whatever until like to the next thing or whatever, right? And I get that, and we all do that, right? A lot of times it's work
Hmm.
related. Um, but I try to make a conscious effort to not wish time away,
Yeah,
you know, and
hundred percent.
because I used to be that way where it's like I just want to get to like, and I'm stoked to come elk hunting with you. I'm stoked to, you know, I'm stoked for the whitetail season to kick off. Like when I get back home from elk hunting with you, I'm stoked to like, for October to hit. And like, I'm pumped for all that stuff. I'm pumped to go to Missouri,
Yeah,
but I'm also just looking forward to like shooting my bow tomorrow,
yep,
or
hundred
like
percent.
doing stuff like that and trying to take joy in the small things and not wish the time away. Because, and this might just be, as you get older, you start thinking about this stuff, but like, if you start to think, you hit a certain age and you start to think of things in just seasons and how many seasons you have left, you know what I mean? Like it puts things into perspective really quick for you where
Yeah,
it's like, man, be careful. Like, do you want to get through like the next 20 seasons? Cause the next 20 seasons for me means I'm getting pretty close to the end of my hunting rope. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Wheelchairs and crossbows, baby.
right. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I hope I'm able to hunt, for a while and stay in good shape and
Yeah,
stuff like that. But, when you start quantifying it in seasons, you talk to a guy who's in his 60s or if he's 60, right? And you start talking about seasons to him, like, guy's got 10 seasons left, like of maybe good hunting, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
if
hundred
that,
percent.
depending on how good a shape they're in, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's like a stark reminder where it's like, dude, don't wish the time away. Like find something
hmm,
else to do to get into. Like I enjoy just even look forward to taking my dog to the lake and letting him swim and watching him swim and playing
yeah,
fetch. Like stuff like
yep.
that, just
And there's
spending time in
like,
the outdoors.
there's, I think there's a difference between like looking forward to something and letting that
Yes.
motivate you, and like wishing your time away. Because like
Hmm.
elk hunting, I like thoroughly look forward to elk hunting because it motivates me to eat healthy, stay in shape, um, hone my skill, shoot my bow, scout. Like it motivates me to do that in due time. Like, and I'm not scouting because I just wish I was elk hunting. I'm scouting because I have the opportunity to go out, take my son, or go on a
Hmm.
hike with my family and do some scouting, or get together with a buddy and scout in the moment. And I'm not doing it just because I want to be elk hunting. I used to whitetail scout because I didn't want to do anything else. I was like, I don't want to think about work. I don't want to think about things I got to do. I'm just going to escape reality and go
Yep.
scout. And like, yeah, it helped me be successful, but I was losing out on like things that I should have been doing that would have made just as good memories besides me posting a picture of a shed in the woods, Like, not there's
Right.
anything wrong with it. I was just doing it to escape because I wanted to wish time away.
Yeah. Well, I think too, it's, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. There'll be people out there that kind of like will probably poo poo this, but there's for me, like the idea, like I mean, I still scout like a fair amount, but I don't
Oh yeah,
scout nearly, I don't scout nearly as much as I used to.
yeah.
Um, and part of it is because I feel like I just got better at it. You know what I mean?
We
Like,
we've talked about that for a long time. Like, guys are like, I put
yeah,
50 miles on this weekend whitetail scouting. I'm like, dude, where I hunt whitetails in Pennsylvania, I can't walk 50 miles.
right.
Like there's you become more efficient, and it takes. I understand what you're
Right.
saying.
Yeah, where it's like I've become more efficient at it to where it's like I can, I'm able to enjoy the other things that I enjoy, like, spend time with the wife, the kiddo, take the dog
Hmm.
to do something,
Yep.
just not be all consumed. That way, whenever I do get to do it, no, I've talked about this before. When I do get to do it, it's like I'm all focused on it. It's
Yeah.
like, and I'm locked in, right? Because I
Hmm.
think a lot of times, you know, you know, with anything, doesn't matter if it's scouting or at work or whatever. It's like if you burn it so hard, at both ends for so long, like it stops being productive at some point,
Mhm.
And some people they're good about it to where it's like the way they stagger it or whatever, where they get a ton out of it. I'm not saying don't spend time in the woods. It's not like what I'm suggesting, but I'm saying that if you don't do 1,000 miles in a season to scout
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're a loser. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like,
100%.
because last year I think, and I talked about this a little bit, but I had a really odd off season, some family stuff that I wasn't able to really get out as much as I wanted to. And I probably scouted like a quarter of the amount that I usually scout. Like, and that's just the honest truth, and I could probably count the number of days I actually got out and scouted in the off season on one hand, like the prior to the 23 season, and
Yeah.
had the best year I ever had. You know what I mean? And so those two things aren't always mutually exclusive. You know what I mean? Like there's a component of it of just like overall woodsmanship and like knowledge of an area and knowledge in general, right? Can make up for some missed time. And so for like this year, I have limited time. And so it's like I scouted a particular area, like an area that I know that I want to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's where I placed my time. And like everything else is going to be kind of like scouting in season. And if something great happens, awesome. But like I'm pushing all my chips to like one spot. Right. And so I'm really trying to like hone that in. Right. And so that's where my focus has been, because I knew I was just going to have a limited time. And so it's like, rather than spread myself thin, I'm just going to kind of go try to know what I need to know for this one general area as well as I possibly can, and call it a day.
Yeah. And I've become that way with turkey hunting, where like back in the day, I've spent way too much time scouting for turkeys. And then when I hunted them and was unsuccessful, it was super frustrating because I was like, man, I spent 50 hours or whatever trying to figure this bird out and he went the other way,
Right.
And now it's like, it's just different. It's not that I've gotten better. I've just gotten a little more efficient. And turkeys, they're very predictable. Like, you're like, they're going to be right here. You go there and you're like, yep, whoa, they're here, And we went. I mean, I think my son killed a turkey. I took one of the archery shop owners out. He shot a turkey, and I shot 2 turkeys. Dude, it was the most mellow turkey season I've ever had, and it was one of the best. It was just chill. Like, go out, enjoy the time, shoot a turkey, come home and eat it, and watching I took my son twice before that, but he missed both times. So it was he's got the itch. He's pretty pumped about it.
Is he? Nice.
So when you come here, he'll be like, how many turkeys have you shot, Mr. Clint?
Yeah, I would tell him none. I shot no turkeys. But I found this awesome shed one time turkey hunting, which is why turkeys may not have died that day. It's Oh man, that's awesome, dude. So he's got the turkey bug, huh?
Yeah,
or just the hunting bug in general.
Well, I think props to my wife. We've done it. She's done it really well. Like, he shot it. When we eat wild game, we always talk about who shot it, what happened, tell us a story. Every time we eat dinner. And so it was finally his turn to provide food for the family.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's huge.
Dude, monumental. Like, he was just like, we're praying for dinner or whatever. And he's like, can I pray for dinner because I provided dinner? I was like, yeah, absolutely, bud. So he does it. And he's like, and I'd like to tell you how I provided this bird. And I'm like, please tell me how I drove you there and set you up so you can shoot this turkey. But like, it's a moment, hopefully it's one of those generational things. Like, I hope he passes down to his kids. Like, like we like to, we like to hunt. We like the sport of it, but for our family, it's like, you're providing food for our family. So like, we killed this bird, dude. And I was like, what do you want to make? Free reign. So we made turkey tacos, and we grubbed up on some turkey tacos that Braxton killed. And dude, the smile on his face, like every bite, he's like, do you like how the turkey tastes that I shot, Dad? And you're like, I do. I love it. So it's just very monumental for him. Yeah, and he wants to do that again. Like, he's like, if I shoot a deer, is that more than, because a turkey's one meal.
Right. Right.
And so he's like,
He's trying to
he,
bogart dinner.
he wants to be, he's starting to realize, he's like, man, if I shoot a deer, I can be like in charge of dinner like a lot more times.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Exactly. That's awesome.
he's got that bug. So, and I want to teach him, like, hunting is great and everything, but like eating it and being and talking about the story is like super important. And so, he'll be like, I got the gun up and I'm white.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, whoa.
So when I get out there, dude, the first thing I'm going to ask him is like, "Hey, did you kill any turkeys this year?" Yeah. You
Yeah,
just set him off from the jump.
he'll go, I did.
I did. Nice. So speaking of stories, man. So we talked about the Frank Church, right? Which was
Yeah,
epic. But you kind of alluded to a rough season
terrible.
leading up to it. And which is partially why I think this September for us is going to be epic, as I think you got all the bad juju out on that mountain last year. I think it's like you blew it all away. So
I don't
I
know.
appreciate you
Yeah,
doing that.
I don't know if you
So
can get much more.
yeah, so let's start at the beginning of the season because well, hold on, I'm going to back up for a second before we get to the actual hunt. So because you've been living in Idaho now for a couple years, right?
Yeah,
And
coming on 3.
yeah, in the first year I came, and one of the things I knew whenever you were moving out there, like you were just like determined to like figure out how to hunt elk, right? And there's a learning curve to that stuff, and you knew that walking into it.
Yeah,
In the first year I came out, we hunted over your birthday, and
yeah. That
we
was
felt
my
like we were,
first year ever elk hunting. That was
yeah,
first.
and you knew where there was elk, and we felt like we were in elk every day. We just couldn't see them. Like we were
Yeah,
close. We could hear them. You know what I mean? It was just like where we were at was just like it's like, oh, they're walking and they're 30 yards away, and I can't see them, and I
yeah,
can hear that there's more than five. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, and
Or one with arms.
whatever the case was. And then you had the following season, and then this past year you messaged me, and you're like, dude, when you come out the next time, you're like, I think I found like the spot. And it's interesting because I talk to our buddy Jake, every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he would say to me, he's like, I don't know how he's doing it. He was like, but that boy finds elk. Like he's like, and I told him he would never find any elk in this spot. And he's like, and I go there. He's like, there's a bunch of elk. He's like, more elk than I've ever seen in my life in one place. Like, you know, and and it was interesting because, and it's funny the way it kind of worked out because like Chad had a similar type of experience, and he's hunting a different part of Idaho,
Yeah.
but when he would go out initially and he would hunt like, oh, you got to hunt elk this way, right? And he was just not having like wasn't having success, right? And
Yeah.
so then he went back to hunting elk how he knows how to hunt, which was like just try to get close to them bedded, right, and catch them in transition, right? Which most people will say like hunting elk, it's like you can't really kill them that way. You have to kind of get into a meadow, whatever, call them, blah 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 blah, whatever, as opposed to trying to catch them from bed to food or food like leaving their bedding area or whatever, right? And so the one he killed in transition. I won't say that you hunt elk like you hunted whitetails necessarily, but the reason why I think, in talking to Jake, why he thinks that you've been successful in finding elk so quickly for a person who didn't grow up around it is because you actually scout elk like you hunted and scouted whitetails on the East Coast. Meaning, like you're looking for very kind of you're playing off of pressure and you're looking for hidey holes and like hard to reach places and just like things like that. So talk a little bit about like I guess a little bit of the light bulb moment where you were like, oh, I just need to do it kind of like this, and then how you look at elk scouting differently than maybe you thought you needed to initially.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for whitetail.
Without giving away the honey
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah. I'll tell them they can't get there. Um, but it's like with whitetail, there's this stigma like this is how you hunt whitetail. and I tried it and I was like, it doesn't work for me. Kind of does, but I want to do it my own way. So like I would find areas where it was like most people said that's too small of an area to hunt, or like what happens if you shoot them and they go here, or what, like all these things where it's just like people didn't do it because there was a lot of what ifs. So I figured out the what if parts and then tried to put a plan together. And so and stay legal. It's like the hardest thing
Mhm.
in Pennsylvania is like just making sure boundaries and you're far away from here, or far away from there, or whatever it may be. So I moved to Idaho, and it's like, yeah, give yourself 7 to 10 years before you draw your bow on an elk. Like, oh, you're an archery hunter, yeah, give yourself 5 to 10 years or whatever. And so I scouted. Everyone's like, find the biggest chunk of public land and get as far away from the road as possible. And so I where we went was a little bit mixture of both. Like it was a little bit, big public land, but an overlooked area. And there was obviously elk there. I mean, day one, we almost got stepped
Mhm.
on by that cow and the whole herd. But that's
Mhm.
because of my inexperience. Like now knowing what I know, you would have shot that bull on that opening day, 25 yards away. Now
Mhm.
knowing what I know, like, because I'm like, you don't sit right there. It's just stupid what we did.
Right.
Um, and so when I got here, I saw this area and I told someone about it, and they said exactly kind of what I wanted to hear. Like, nobody goes there. And I was like, oh, perfect. Very, very difficult access, very, very visible. So like lots of people know about it, but no one goes there just because access is difficult and it's super steep. Like you get there and it's to get where, I mean, it's steep where we're going,
No,
like,
I've looked at it on the map. Like yeah, the
yeah.
lines are close. The
Oh, yeah.
the top put lines are close.
Yes. But like it's sick. So I said to my buddy, I was like, dude, I gotta scratch an itch and I gotta go in here. And he was like, it's just, no one goes in there. Like it's,
And so everybody
overpopulated.
thinks because nobody goes in there, there's obviously no elk in there, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some like bordering properties that, would be like discourage people from going in there. And so like, and it's a big public land. Like anybody can go in there. And so I said, dude, I got to scratch this itch. I'm flipping going in there. So I literally called Lauren. I was at work and I said, I got to do it now. And she was like, what? And I'm like, I'm coming home. I'm getting my stuff. I'm leaving by myself. And I've never been in, they never even stepped foot in there. So I make my way in there, set up my base camp. And literally as I'm sitting up base camp, a bull is just torching off like, not like a couple hundred yards away.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, it's just like they're just screaming just for fun, like, and I just got here. So I got my inReach out, texted my two buddies and said, yo, be here in the morning at 4, bring your camera. You're going to film me shooting a bull. And they were just like, yeah, whatever, but we'll show up. Right. And literally all day we chased bugles, or till like, well, in the morning we chased bugles and it got quiet. And then at like 10 o'clock, we ripped this bugle and this bull answered back. And it was just like the deepest, gnarliest bugle that I've heard. Now, I haven't heard a lot of bugles. Like, there's
Mhm.
guys that have been hunting way longer than me, way better elk hunters. They've heard, like, to me, I was like, dude, that sounds way different than any elk I've heard bugling in the 2.5 years I've been in Idaho. But it was, dude, it's just like, we had all the elevation we had gained. Just, he took it all away because it was way down at the bottom.
Mhm.
And I was like, I just looked at him and I was like, hey, I'm going to go down there and try to shoot this bull. And they're like, oh, because one guy, well, they both had never killed elk, and the other guy had never really ever seen one in a hunting scenario. They
Mhm.
both are big hunters, but elk is not, they don't, they're new to it as well. So they were like, dude, this bull is screaming. Every time we would bugle, he'd cut us off. We'd cow call, he'd scream and chuckle. So we bombed down into this drainage. And I mean, every ounce of elevation we gained, it just sucked it away. And we get down there, and again, we're a bunch of noob elk hunters. We know a little bit, but I'm like, okay, you stay back here and call, and the other guy's going to come and film. So my buddy's 30 yards behind me calling, like directly behind me. and the drainage comes down to like a dry creek bed, and this comes up to the other side, and there's like a little 15-foot hump in the middle where like two drainages meet. And we get down there and we bugle, and he'd closed like 400 yards and was on the other side of this hump, like 30 yards from me. He screams, but the dry creek bed's straight down. So I like kind of jump into the creek bed, scurry up the other side a little bit behind this log, and I just draw my bow because I'm like, I'm going to just be ready. Dude, all I see is just his fifth and sixth and his whale tails just above the cedars come over this hillside just like this, like tilting it in between the cedars so he doesn't hit them. And I was like, oh my, I'm at full draw, and he's frontal at like 22 yards. And the guy who's with me, and he's trying to film this thing. He's filming the ground. He's like this. And he's like, Wilson, he's huge. And I'm anchored, and he's looking above me at my buddy who's calling. He doesn't see him, but he's just looking across. Thermals are sucking out the creek bottom. Like, he does no idea we're there. And I have a clear frontal shot at 20 yards, and I could not shoot him. Like, I froze. Like, I physically could not, it's not even called target pain. I just, like, I froze. Like, I could not get myself to release. It wasn't that I couldn't settle my pin or anything. My pin was rock solid, like, because I was frozen. And then he bugles and then turns and walks up the hill and walks out of my life. And I was like, we were all pumped. And I was like, dude, that's a success right there. Like, found a spot, went in there, called this bull in right where we thought he was going to be. And, he walked away. I'll never forget the picture of his white ivory tip antlers coming over the hill. So they had to leave, and I was like, I'm not leaving. So I get back to camp. I text Clancy. I'm like, you got to get over here because I'm going to kill this bull tomorrow. But we got to go in a different way because I have already been in this way. So I'm not trying to trick him on the same, try to fool him twice. He's an old bull. Like, I don't think I was going to fool him twice in that exact same spot. So that night, him and then his good buddy came in. They camped. We hike Timbuktu around to get all the way around this drainage to come in from a different side. And they've never been there either. And we're hiking through this hellhole. And I stopped them. It's like 5:20 in the morning. I said, guys, thanks for coming in here with me. It's brutal. I have no idea if he's still going to be in here. But if he is, he's giant, right? And they're like, dude, we're just here for it. And literally as Clancy's saying, like, dude, I'm here for you, he torches off, like, unprovoked, like 400 yards in front of us, just raw. And dude, our spirits were super high. Thermal started to switch, so I never hiked uphill so fast to get above him. And as the thermal was rising, so that because we were below him in a creek bottom, and the sun started to heat up, and I was like, we got to get above him. So we get above him, and we're sitting there. I'm like, we got to find an opening. Let's find an opening. You know how thick it is here. If anyone ever wants to come to North Idaho, be my guest. It is nasty thick. So we find the only opening on this hillside, and we split apart. Like, I'm up on this opening. Clancy's 20 yards behind me, but a little bit lower. And then our buddy Hunter is another 30 yards back this way calling. He rips a bugle off. Bull answers, same exact bull. We cut him off. He chuckles, and within 30 seconds, he's standing broadside in front of me at like 12 feet, screaming his head off, looking at Hunter. And I'm at full draw. And right before this, my buddy Clancy said, or I said to him, I was like, dude, if you have a shot on this bull, you shoot this bull. Like, you shoot him. And he was like, no, dude. He's like, your spot. You found this bull. You're killing him. I was like, absolutely not. This bull needs to die. He's a monster. We got to kill him. So he's bugling. And I'm taking it all in. I'm fully relaxed. I got pressure on my thumb. And I'm like, as soon as he stops bugling, I'm going to kill him. Like, let him bugle his last breath, and I kill him. He stops bugling. My shot breaks. I mean, couldn't ask for a better shot execution. I watch my fletchings just disappear through his lungs. And I was just like, he turns around, goes running. I look back at Clancy. He doesn't have an arrow nocked anymore. We shot at the exact same time, and hit that bull at the exact same time, one frontal and one through the lungs. And I'm looking at him like, did you shoot him? He's like, I shot him. I'm like, you shot him? I shot him. We both shot him. Like freaking out. This giant bull. We put 2 arrows in, and we found both of our arrows covered in blood. So obviously, like, spirits are high. I think I called you.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I called AJ from the archery shop that I used to work at, one of my best friends in Pennsylvania. I'm freaking out. Call my father. I'm like, I just killed a giant elk. I like, it was like I did it, and it's like a badge of honor here. Like I finally did it. Clancy's freaking out. It's his first bull as well, and we gave him 2.5 hours to start falling blood on both, blood everywhere, like both sides of the trail and straight down, like from the frontal shot, and followed it down in the creek bottom, a couple hundred yards. Comes back up out of the creek bottom. Blood dries up. But tracks, you can see his tracks clear as day. He climbs, 1,000 some feet in elevation up and over. We lose it at the top and it's just gone. We shot him at 10 something in the morning, searched till 11 at night. I mean, it was 85 degrees that day. And I remember Clancy went and got his dad, and he sat us. We're frantic. We got batteries are dying on everything. We got up and down elevation. We're toast. And he says, guys, at this point, you're just trying to recover antlers because the meat is spoiled, like if he's dead. And so let's go get a good night's sleep and come back first thing in the morning. So we go back first thing in the morning, grid search again, nothing. I went back in there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in September. No birds, no smells, no sign of anything dead. Like I would pick different ridges to sit on, so as the thermals would come up these little spines, if something was dead, I could smell it. And I've smelled plenty of dead elk. I've found plenty of dead elk. Like, what a dead animal. They're not hard to find. So we never found them. And dude, it crushed me.
But even while you were looking though, like you were passing up bulls all along the way in this spot.
I went in like 2 weekends later or something. And we go in there. Obviously I have my bow because I'm like, maybe I got one lung and Clancy got like a flesh wound or something, like who knows, maybe he's still alive. Maybe I'm going to catch up to him and I'll put an arrow in him. Cause I had every intentions of putting my tag. Like if I found him, I was hanging my tag on his antlers, dead, even if it was rotted and picked apart by wolves, like we're going to tag him. Right.
Right.
And, where this bull was screaming like 100 yards in front of us on the road. And my buddy was like, put an arrow in. And I was like, dude, I'm not even thinking about hunting right now. Like, I'm still so sick to myself. And this bull comes up on the road, like, nice bull, standing there at 55 yards. And he's like, are you going to shoot him? And I was like, I mean, I can shoot him. And I put an arrow in, and then he's up the hill. And then as he goes up the hill, another bull comes up behind us screaming. And I was like, what is going on? Like, it was pretty, I was in a really weird state of mind because I was like, I don't want to shoot an elk. I want to put my tag on that elk because it's my pride. And, like if you wound an animal, you want to,
exhaust out every option to try to find him. Yeah.
Exhaust out every option. And a lot of people will say, you wound an animal, that's it. They're done forever. Like, not forever, but that season, they're not even going to attempt to hunt again. And we exhausted every option possible. Like, I could show you the tracks on my Onyx. Like, I'm surprised there's even animals anywhere in that area because I literally walked every inch of it, And so it was pretty hard. My wife at one point gave me a reality check. She was like, get it together. Like, I know you're upset. I know you're sad, but you're going to do it again next year. You're going to learn from your mistake. And I'm like, I don't know what my mistake was. That's the problem. You're like,
right.
It would tell if that scenario happened over, I would do the same thing 10 out of 10 times. Like, I'd float my pin right where I floated it. I'd break my shot just how I broke it. I'd use the same broadhead, like same arrow setup, everything. Like, I was shooting a top of the line Hoyt bow, top of the line, perfectly built arrows. Like, everything is, if you know me, how I do my bow stuff, like hyper tuned. Like, there's no questioning anything. So I'm like, I'd do the same thing over again. It's just elk are freaking tough. Like, they're beasts. He got two adult size arrows, bled like crazy, and yes, and people might be listening to this or watching it and like, oh, he's for sure dead. Trust me, I think that like he's dead somewhere,
Right.
but he beat me. Like he beat me at my own
He's got
game.
it. Yeah, he had a hidey hole somewhere
Yep.
that he ran to that was just like no man's land.
And we may
Like
go in there next year or this September and find his antlers. Like, dude, if we do that, epic.
right.
Or I'm kind
Yeah.
of hoping he's alive and he's got another, weird attribute to his antlers, and you get
Right.
to shoot a freak.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's man, I remember when you called me, I was pumped for you, and then whenever I got the subsequent call, I was not pumped. Like
Oh,
I was the opposite of pumped. I was deflated, like
oh
for you.
man,
And like the crazy thing was is like, I mean, I said this at the beginning, I've known you for a while, and like um you get bummed for your buddies when they mess something up or whatever. And we all do it, you know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
happens. Like I mean, you rode the roller coaster
100%,
with me
yeah,
when I was in Iowa and I missed that big deer two different times. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like,
oh yeah,
you know, it's you don't get much more down than that. You know, but I was hurting for you because like you're such like an upbeat person, and you're always
yeah.
like one who keeps other people upbeat and stuff like that. And to like literally hear the hurt in your voice, like in talking to you, like it was killing me. You know what I mean? Where
Oh,
I was just like, goodness, man. I'm like, I got off the phone and I said to Megan, she's like, how's Wilson? And I was like, man, I was like, he's having a rough go, man. I was like, remember when I was
yeah.
in Iowa? I was like, remember when I was in Iowa? She's like, yeah. She was like, I was like, worse than that. She was like, ooh, because I was I mean, my story ended out, okay or whatever. But,
Yeah,
in
I
the
did.
moment, it didn't get much worse for me. It's like you start
Oh,
questioning everything. You're like, do I know
yep,
what I'm doing? Like, why is this happening? It's
yep.
like, and the crazy thing is, it was like the shots you put on it too. You know what I mean? Like, as a person who's coming out, it makes me think like, I mean, my setup is pretty dialed. Like
Yeah.
it shoots well. And we'll get like the next step here. We'll talk a little bit about like our plans for next fall and stuff like that. But like for me to start getting ready, I've been shooting my longbow a lot. And the crazy thing is shooting my longbow pretty much all off season. My compound shooting right now is like lights out. Like it's
Yeah,
like
that's
picking up
legit.
a toy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's crazy because my focus is so much better. Like I almost feel
Hmm.
like I was getting lazy with my compound like the past couple years and just not
Yeah.
focusing. And like I really had to focus when I started shooting a longbow. And so now when I pick up my compound, I focus like I'm shooting my longbow, and it's like, dude, I'm just dropping dimes. Like,
Yeah.
everything's stacked on top of each other, and everything breaks really well. My pin float is like a lot tighter than it was before.
Yeah.
Like everything. But I still have this pause in the back of my mind. So even though it's like the bit that I have shot my compound, in the back of my mind, I'm going, man, should you change your arrow setup? Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I'm thinking of like
Yeah.
you from last year, and I'm like, cause I don't shoot like a super heavy arrow. I want to say like my arrow weight is like around 480 or something like that
Yeah. Like
ish.
yeah. Mine's 472, what I
Yeah.
used last year. Like
Right.
women, like not against women, but like there's ladies that shoot elk at 50 pounds and 26-inch draw lengths, like with little arrows, and they're killing elk. Like, dude, all the
Hmm.
remainder of elk season, I'd see a picture of someone. They're like, got my elk, and they shot it like high guts, and it ran 70 yards and died. And I'm
Right.
just like, are you kidding me?
I
Like,
know,
what is
right?
wrong with you?
Well, all it's doing is it's building it up for an epic fall for us this year,
Oh yeah,
because we're both killing bulls this
yeah,
year is what's going to happen. Like I'm speaking it into existence. Like that's just
oh
what I've been
yeah,
telling myself, because I do think there's something to like thinking something into existence to a degree. You know, like because last year, like I know going to Kansas, like I had thought, like even in the off season, like anytime I thought about hunting in Kansas, it's like I always pictured myself like killing a deer. And I never knew what size. It was just like I always pictured like success. It was like whenever I would
hmm
think about it, I'd be like, I would envision myself shooting a deer in whatever
Yeah.
scenario. It'd be like one place here, one place there. It would just be, it wouldn't
Yeah.
always be the same spot, but it would just be like every time there was a dead deer, you know?
Hmm.
And so I'm doing that. I've been doing that now, like with upcoming elk hunts. Like I just been thinking about elk hunting and like envisioning like killing an elk. Like
Yeah.
just keep thinking that way. That way, whenever it comes, when it happens, it's not a surprise. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and I think there's something to that where you start to mentally already like you've already done it to a degree. You know?
Yeah. Well, from the time I saw that bull was at full draw on it and then shot him the next day, seeing him in real life was like a game changer because like I've chased a lot of bugles around. Like, but having him stand there and not being able to shoot, I mean, I couldn't get the picture out of my head. Just like the whiskers coming off his nose and like the breath coming out of his nostrils, and just like you could see his hide coming in and out, and like all those things, that mental picture. Like the next day, dude, because like he came in, so he stopped, he bugled, we cut him off, he knocked over this little pine tree with his antlers, and then busted out and bugled. I was already at full draw, and I was just like, this is what I'm here for. And it was just like, back to the basics of just like everything went out of my body. And I was just like, dude, steady your pin, break your shot, kill an elk. It's like, boom. I still get jitters when I shoot stuff, but it was like, I pictured it the day before. I thought about it. I didn't sleep a wink that night. And then shooting him, I was like, this is it. Like, I'm prepared for it. Now I had a complete biggest like adrenaline dump I've ever had after I shot that elk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't stand up. I'm just like, dude,
You're laying
I
on
was
the
just
ground
like,
rolling.
well, and if I don't eat a lot when I'm like backpacking or hunting. Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty, I got my jar of peanut butter and like some dry oatmeal or whatever. And like, so like my blood sugar just went to
To the
non-existent.
floor.
Yeah. And my buddy pulled out some like Sour Patch Kids and I was like, oh, it's so funny. But yeah, I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
I think about it. I think about it often, and I'm pretty pumped up. And like, I'm not, like I've never, maybe maybe that elk died, so maybe yeah, I have killed an elk, but like, I got a long ways to go when it comes to elk hunting. I just have seemed to be able to find them. But it's all the pieces of the
That's
elk hunting,
that's
like yeah,
half the
finding
battle, though,
them.
man. You got to be able to find, especially the area you live in. Like the finding them
Hmm.
part is not easy.
Yeah, like when you can elk hunt 15 minutes out of town, like a lot of people elk hunt here, and so it's just
Mm-hmm.
like finding them, putting like the pressure on the hills of like, oh, you're not going to go there. Well, that means I should go check it out. And I can't tell you how many times people have been like, oh man, yeah, so and so saw an elk over here, but oh, you can't hunt that because so and so said that there was this happened over there and it pushed all the elk out. There's wolves there or whatever. I'm like, oh, let me go check it out. And I go in there. I'm like, well, there was wolves, but now there's no wolves here, and there's tons of elk. Because the wolf
Right.
thing here is pretty big. Um, but you can find areas where maybe there was wolves at one point, but man, people kill the crap out of wolves here.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are like, "Don't the elk or the wolves killed all the elk in that unit," I'm like, "That's the unit I want to go try out because no one else is going there because there's lots of wolves there."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Zig when others are zagging.
hmm.
It's because a narrative is not true in perpetuity, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
100%. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, it's like saying, when I was born, I was 18 inches tall, right? It's like, you're not even
yeah,
18 inches tall, like for all your life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like things change, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But so fast forwarding kind of like to this year now, right? Like now we're coming up on, September, going back to what we were talking about earlier, not wishing time away, but it's right around the
Hmm.
corner, and I'm stoked to come out to see you again this year. Um, what are you doing to kind of get ready for the fall? Like, have you been back in there scouting? Do you have any cameras in there or anything like that? Or
I went and pulled a camera that I set the day I shot him. On the way out, I was like, I hung two cameras. I hung a camera on his bed, because clearly, like this bed he'd been using was that was his area. Like he didn't. It's a prime spot for a mature bull to be. So, and where his bed was located is the most ideal spot. And you're like, dude, this guy's been here. This is his spot. Year after year after year, he's been here. No one's messed with him. And so I hung a camera on that area, and then I hung a camera on like a little exit trail into a saddle where, as elk go feeding or migrating or whatever in that area, they have to kind of funnel through this saddle. And the one camera got a decent amount of pictures. And then my main camera that I thought I was going to catch him on if he was still alive died like 2 days after I set it, because in the chaos I didn't put new batteries in it. So it sat there for September, October, November, December, January. 7 months not taking pictures, dude.
It's the worst.
And my anticipation, I mean, anyone listening to this can relate to that like exact thing. I'm just like telling all my buddies, I'm like, going to get that camera. If he's still alive, he's going to be on it, all this stuff. I hike in there and I open it up, and I was like, oh, the battery's in. Okay, maybe it's dead. I checked the card. There's like 5 pictures. There's 2 cow elk, and a mule deer. And I was like,
dude,
God,
it's the worst.
But it's,
But you've been hiking,
yeah.
or you've been scouting back in there since then, though, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's great. I found,
Because not your concern, but like your question was like when you found that was like, is this like a one-time thing and it's based on some like food-based thing or
yeah,
or snowpack thing, or is this like somewhere where they're going to want to be year over year?
yeah.
Because you didn't know that yet, right? Because that was the
No,
first time you've kind of happened upon it, and so.
yeah. Did I flip the coin and guess heads and get heads? But all my other flips are going to be tails. Like, that's my worry, right? Like,
Mhm.
that I got lucky. Um, but the amount of historical sign I found in there, because the the days I spent in there, the first 2 days were trying to kill this bull, and then the rest of my time in there was trying to find that bull. So taking inventory of old beds or rubs or whatever it may be, I just wasn't thinking about it,
Mhm.
because I was trying to find this bull. And so now the couple times I've gone in there with the intentions of like, okay, does this look like it's a place where elk historically come through, or are they wintering here, or is this a place where cows are calving? Like, what is it? What is this area? How am I breaking this area out? And it's just like they've been there for a while. And I talked to a guy. He works in the hunting industry, making elk calls, and I was like, hey, just let me run this by you. If I shot an elk, I mean, I didn't find him, but he's probably dead somewhere. Let's say he's dead. And this spot, I tell him about the spot, and he goes, if it's a place where a mature bull can live, a mature bull will live there. So he was like, you got to think, like, you killed this bull, and whether you found him or not, he's no longer protecting his home. All the other satellite bulls and whatnot that he's fought off over where he keeps his cows and his harem, like, he doesn't have to, he's not doing that. So another mature bull is going to move into that spot. And then he told me he's got he's killed a lot of bull elk on the same knob every single year, because he's like, a mature bull lives here every rut. Like, I kill him, and the next year another one comes in. And I was like, it was very reassuring to me. I was like, man, there might be another mature bull right in that exact same spot. Like, elk move around a
Right.
whole bunch, but when I'm finding these older mature bulls I mean, it was the middle, it was the rut, but he didn't have any cows with him.
Hmm.
And come to find out, like, a lot of times those older mature bulls, they won't do any work to get a harem of cows. They let these younger raghorns or satellite bulls get a herd, and then once they're like, all right, cows are in heat, it's time to go, they just get out. All they have to do is kick that satellite bull out of the herd, and now he has a whole herd of cows, and he didn't have to do any work for it besides assert dominance over one bull.
Yeah, it's like a mature whitetail, like
Yep.
waiting, like when you watch them during the rut, they will, at the beginning you'll see a lot of 2 and 3 year olds running crazy, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And it won't be till like a little later, then all of a sudden you'll see the big boys kind of come out because now it's actually game time, and so
Yeah.
they don't spend a lot of time doing a chase in, they're there to they're there for the action, not there for the
Yeah.
games, you know. So
Yeah. So I got really high hopes for this area because there's a lot of area to hunt, and it's not an easy way to hunt it, but it's like we can cover a lot of miles and chase bugles, and locate bugles all day. Like from sunup
mhm.
to sundown, we'll be using our Lamborghinis and just, you know,
Lamborghinis.
yeah,
Well, the nice thing is just like in looking at it and just you describing it to me, it's like it's a brutal climb in, but once
yeah.
you're in,
Once you're
it's
there,
the only hard part then becomes like if you need to go down to get on something for a shot opportunity, or like
hmm
you did on that bull where you had to go
yeah,
lose all the elevation to get to him.
yeah. But I'll tell you now from experience, that's the last thing you're thinking of.
Right.
Like when a bull is screaming, you're not like, oh, I don't want to go down there because I'm going to have to
Well,
come back up.
yeah,
Which
yeah.
I've thought before, like, oh, I hope I don't have to dive into that drainage to chase that bull. But when you're up there and a bull is just torching off, you're like, you're literally not thinking of anything else. Like, you're like, we're going to go all the way down there and kill that bull. It's going to be awesome because then that's what we're
Yeah.
here for, you know?
Yeah, it was funny. Chad and I were kind of talking about Chad Sylvester and I just did a podcast like a week or so ago, and we were talking about just like preparation for the fall and stuff like that. And and what I had mentioned, I was like, jujitsu keeps me in pretty decent shape, overall, like with cardio and stuff like that. I was like, I'll now that I'm back from vacation, like that was kind of like my cutoff where I was like, all right, I was like, I got to start doing a little bit of rucking just for like working those small back muscles that you don't typically use and the small feet muscles that you don't typically use and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we both like came to the same realization. I did a year earlier, but it was that because he was hiking, like he was rucking with like 80, 90 pounds, and I only ruck with like 40 in my
That
pack,
guy's a
right?
beast.
Yeah, and I was like, and he was like, there's no amount of preparation you can do to go out west and hunt if you're not from out west. If you're not climbing those mountains, there's nothing you can really do to prepare you to climb the mountains except
Mhm.
climb the mountains. The only
Yeah.
thing you really do is just be in good enough shape to where it's not going to kill you while you're out there, and that within the
Yeah.
first couple of days of being there, you acclimate, right?
Yep.
Because he was like, last year he was doing like 80 or 90 pound rucks and he messed up his back, what I mean, before he went. And it's like, that's the last thing you want to do is like either hurt yourself or overtrain before you go.
Yeah.
It's like just be in decent shape and know that it's going to suck regardless. That, and I was like, I only plan to carry 80 pounds once,
Yeah.
so I don't need
Maybe
to plan
if
to
it's
carry it
just
for
you
a
and
week.
me, if it's just you and me, you're going to do it more than once, but and maybe
Right.
twice.
Right. Exactly. It's like, but I don't need to do it for like a week straight, so
No, it's the mental game where it's like we gotta sometimes we're gonna move real fast and it's gonna be a couple hours of just skirting and knowing that there's a positive outcome. Like if we're in the moment, and that's what's cool about where we're going is like it's cool, it's beautiful country. So like we are, we're in the mountains, we're chasing elk. Like um, it's not the hope of if there's elk there. It's just of like when is that timer gonna go off where it's like go time. And
yeah.
so I think that's a big thing I've transitioned to. It's like I like to be prepared, but also I'm a little reckless. So
Mhm.
like I would rather go light and fast than heavy and over prepared. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Where like I'm kind of like do it and figure it out later. And so this last year I've spent a lot of time figuring out like what do I need? Like what do I need? I need my
Mhm.
license, I need my tags, I need a knife
Hmm.
and water. Like
Yep.
all this other crap in my backpack, I'm like, dude, if it's gonna inhibit me from like scrambling up a hill real fast, because there's like if an elk bugles and he's going uphill, and I look at you and be like, dude, freaking run to the top of that hill and turn left 100 yards. Like you gotta go. It's like, and a lot of people don't want to do that. They're just like, oh, we'll see if we'll let him go, let him bed down, and then we'll try to get him in the afternoon. I'm like, no, let's go freaking kill this. Let's go try to kill him right now. Like, the least we can do is try,
Right.
because we might bump him and he might go over over the ridge and now be in that bowl. And guess what? In 5 hours, we'll chase him in that bowl, Like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
giving it that extra effort is just like what excites me. Whereas in Idaho, it's a lot of like, try once and then pat yourself on the back for trying and then try again another day,
Right. Right.
which like frustrates me. I'm like, let's keep going. And then guys are like, but I get a lot of that from turkey hunting. Like I've blown so many turkey hunts up, like, but turkey, I know you hunt them all day, but like there's been times where I'm like, I'm going to go kill a turkey today. It might take me 6 hours, but like the harder, like if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. Have you heard of that phrase?
No, that's an awesome phrase though.
Yeah. Like if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. And so it's kind of like, if you're not a good elk hunter, just keep trying to be a good elk hunter, because eventually your paths are going to cross and you're going to make it happen. So,
right.
So I'm hoping the opportunities are plenty and we can try hard.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it, buddy. I can't wait to be there. We have I'm there for a nice little stretch this time, coming out in the good time of the year as well.
Oh,
and
I'm a little nervous because I think the bulls, once one elk bugles here, dude, it's like, like the British are coming, everyone talks about like, dude, so-and-so said they're bugling in this drainage, or so-and-so said they're bugling in this unit. And like, it gets everyone on like frantic alert. And so I know it's going to be like 3 days before you come, and that bomb is going to hit. And I'm going to be like, the elk are bugling, hurry up.
I'll be trying to change my flight. Be like, change my flight. Hey, dude, I ain't past like changing my flight last minute and telling work like, yo, I'm leaving a couple days early.
No, your time where you're coming is like, I'm hoping to be in the woods a few days before like it really pops off. So
yeah, nice.
So I think it's with this area being unpressured. Like we obviously, like my little experience I have in there, like bulls were vocal. I mean, there was bull even bugling in rifle season when I was in there, and so like we're gonna get opportunities, I think, early. That it's going to be, I mean, obviously you're like, I want to shoot something, whatever's legal, I'm going to shoot it. But like we might get a few opportunities early, which is going to be exciting. So
nice. Yeah. I'm shooting whatever's first legal one that comes within shooting range is getting waylaid. That's the plan.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. But well, cool, man. I've kept you here about an hour and a half, buddy. I want to make sure you get a little family time in this evening and eat some venison, maybe eat some turkey and have your son tell you a little story about it. Do that.
Yeah.
Do that tonight. But before you get out of here, man, let people know. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, we're eating elk meat tonight from a buddy, so it's exciting.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Before you get out of here, let people know where they can follow along with you and anything you got going on.
I'm on Facebook. You'll see a lot of pictures of my family and I at Wilson McSwain, and then I'm on Instagram. My Instagram use has been slowing down, but you'll see pictures of when Clint comes out on there. So Wilson McSwain. So we'll see you on there.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you, buddy. I'm looking forward to seeing you, man. And tell the wife and the kids I said hey, and I'll see them soon.
Awesome, man. Thanks, bud.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. And before I shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Osseo Gear, Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and Genesee Beer. And until next time, we'll see y'all.